Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Wednesday's episode of Trending, brought to you by Iconic Coffee. Head over to shop.iconic.com and use the code TRENDING to get 10% off. Morning, Gaz.
How you doing?
Feel like I've not been sat with you for weeks.
No, happy Trump tariff day. What did you get? Did you get anything nice for it?
No, just a lot of news stories that say the same thing.
Yeah.
Impending doom, mate. Impending doom.
Exactly. For once, we're actually not going to focus heavily on Trump. I think it's worth maybe waiting a few days, seeing how that plays out.
Yep, I agree.
And go from there. So what we're going to do, we're going to focus, I think all four stories here are actually from the UK, but obviously everything's related to everything else. And so what comes here will go there and go there and go there, because it always does. This is the most predictable case of problem, reaction, solution, and we've spoke about it multiple times on various shows throughout this channel, including this one. The headline is Labour MPs, so this is UK, Labour MPs call for digital IDs to tackle migration. That's the migration they allowed and their previous governments allowed. More than 40 Labour MPs are urging ministers to introduce a new form of digital ID to help control the migration service and improve public services. In an open letter, Labour MPs from three groups said a gear shift. I just want to do that at the same time. A gear shift.
The buzz terms they use.
Oh, they love it, don't they? Was needed to reap the benefits of digital identification. Well, the reason they use the buzzwords and all that sort of stuff is because this has just been written probably by a think tank, probably by an advisory group, and these MPs have just stuck their signature on it. They've had no input, almost certainly. The idea of digital ID has long been backed by former Labour Prime Minister and wanted war criminal, Sir Tony Blair. He's wanted by me and the public. He's not wanted by any form of body because he just, you get rewarded by the cult if you serve them by killing 1 million people. And former Conservative leader William Hague, a man whose head looks like the tip of a penis. But the BBC understands, I've added that bit myself, it's not actually in the article. But the BBC understands the government has no plans to introduce mandatory vaccination, mandatory digital ID. That was a slip of the tongue, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, fraudulent.
Of course they don't yet, because they don't think they can get it through yet. So what they need is a bit of fear mongering, maybe a terror attack by someone that they couldn't catch because they didn't have ID or whatever. Things that will gaslight the public, because that's what they do. The letter reads, while the government has made great strides, another little buzz term there, on digitalising identification, the time has come for a more comprehensive programme. The truth is, we're moving to an area of digital ID. Now, when they say stuff like that, it's like...
that says era, by the way.
It's, what did I say?
Area.
An era of digital ID. Started well, haven't I? Vaccinations, areas. So this Jake Richards, who's one of the Labour MPs who signed it, has told the BBC, the truth is we're moving to an era of digital ID. Well, they say that because then it's like, it's matter of fact.
It's inevitable,
It's an inevitability. Yeah, we're moving there. Oh, really? I wasn't aware I'd been asked.
What he means is they're moving us there.
Yeah, exactly. The government knows this and is bringing forward new developments of digital driving licence and passports. We spoke about them before.
Yep.
Of course, they were always just a little step on the road. But we want them to move faster to ensure the project is comprehensive and joined up, critically, bringing the public with them. Like you said, dragging you along.
Yep.
They argue that digital ID could help tackle illegal off-the-books employment as well. Oh, yeah, you can't be getting a job where you don't give your taxes to the government so they can send them to Zelensky. Like I said, it's a perfect problem reaction solution because actually, when you look at this is a generalisation, but I think it's generally right. The people that are against the dystopian digital ID, digital cashless society, currency, all this kind of stuff, the Great Reset, the 15-minute cities, you'll own nothing, you'll be happy, you'll have no privacy. The people that are generally opposed to that are people that would probably identify as right-leaning.
Definitely now.
Now, more conservative, kind of, no, I don't like this step to dystopia. And then you think, okay, so what demographic of people have you got to persuade? Well, that demographic. Okay. What demographic is generally opposed to mass unfiltered immigration?
Same group.
It's the same group. So what you do then is you go, okay, you're opposed to mass immigration and the dangers of it, of unvetted migrant men coming into this country. You don't know who they are. You don't know what their background is. You don't know whether they're guilty of crimes previously. You could be a rapist or anything. And obviously history tells us that some of them have been. So then you go, you want that a fix to that problem. Here's one. And you go, oh, see, I never wanted digital ID before.
But now you've caused the problem. It's the only solution I see.
Yeah. Oh, mate, I don't want it. I feel like I'm being dragged along. But if it saves just one life,
yep, there you go.
Let's do it. And of course, the digital ID then becomes another step towards the social credit system, which is what we've spoke about from the beginning of COVID, basically. That the fact that was already in place in China. There's millions of people in China that aren't allowed to use trains or go on planes or anything like that. And that's, I mean, it's so predictable, Jay. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. I think there's two things to unpack with this story. One is that the way that the last government was so catastrophic on these issues, it's meant that the new incoming Labour government that we know want to take it further and further towards the cults agenda can blame the previous one for everything. So if they bring this out or roll this out, they can say it's been caused by the fact the Tories lost control of the borders.
Yeah,
they can blame the Tories. All these people in hotels and on the ships or whatever where they're being housed, that's all the Conservatives' fault. No talks about the fact that more and more and more and more, especially in the last few days when the weather is calming down and we get through the summer months and people get across the channel easier, those numbers are going to increase. They can just blame the Tories, which keeps their base that don't know any better kind of appeased to a degree. Really easy tactic for them. The other one is they're attacking all the ways that people could potentially resist. So if you want to resist the system, you don't want to comply with it. Well, financially, if you're pretty secure, you've got savings, you've got ability, you've got cash set aside, things like that, you can be a bit more against some of the system's things. If you have none of that, the system tells you what you need to do and you rely on the system for your survival, it's much more difficult to resist. So they've obviously attacked people's savings. Cash, big one, that's why I brought that up on there. Cash in hand is a massive thing for a lot of particularly people in the trades. It's how they get by, it's how they survive. And also a lot of the way that alternative thinkers, keep financial institutions kind of irrelevant is by paying in cash, by doing things like that. You also can get rid of that. There's one way you can't resist anymore. Yeah. A lot of people in America try to grow their own food. Well, that you're considered a national threat if you do that now, if you prep in the same way. So they'll try and attack that. So bit by bit, they'll try and attack all the ways that people would try and resist, which is the best way to stop any kind of resistance, isn't it? Of course, yeah. I think the language you pointed out there as well, that it makes it inevitable. People just think, what's the point? Resistance is futile. They become quite apathetic to it, and it's like, I don't want this to happen, but what am I going to do about it?
What can you do?
What am I going to do about it?
And it's the same the other side of the Atlantic. Like Starmer used the language of injecting AI into the veins of the United Kingdom. That's probably where I got the vaccination thing from.
Well, where it's really meant to go. That's why.
Well, exactly. Yeah, it's meant to go that way. And America is pushing the AI thing and all that kind of stuff as well. And exactly the same way, despite the fact that Trump and Starmer are supposed to be enemies, they're doing the same thing. And it's interesting you made a point there, because I focused on the fact that obviously the government, if you pay someone cash in hand, they can't put their little grubby mitts in that to take their percentage, 20% or whatever, which then, like I say, gets sent off to the green Primark tractor suit in Ukraine. But the other part of it is, if you pay cash, they don't know what you're buying, because there's no digital footprint to that. You can buy whatever you want. Do you know what I mean? But when you're paying online or when you're paying with a card, everything you buy is there in black and white on a statement. They know everything.
And the big thing as well is, if you pay cash and the person you buy something off pays cash. Let's say I bought something off you for 50 quid and you kept using that, and everyone paid in cash. After 100 transactions, that 50 quid is still worth 50 quid. Whereas if I pay you 50 quid on a card, you pay 2.5% to the card manufacturer, and then so on. After 100 transactions, that £50 is gone, doesn't exist anymore. And it's gone into the system in essentially another form of tax, in a payment processing fee.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing as well, because keeping cash alive is actually keeping money in circulation, because it just goes out. Back into the system.
20 quid in my car yesterday.
I love it when that happens.
Mate, honestly, I put my hand in my glove compartment to get my sunglasses because summer's on its way. And it was 20 quid, mate. Honestly, I literally punched the air. I was like, mate, that's not even like I found a quid. It's 20 quid.
I love it when you put on some shorts or something you haven't worn when the summer comes, or your big coat on when the winter comes. You haven't put your hand in your pocket for months, and there's a fiver. Yeah. Fiver I'd be settling with.
Amazing.
Even a couple of quid. It's a trolley.
20 quid, I was happy. I was like, that'll buy me a chomp nowadays with inflation.
Lunch is on you then.
There we go. I think I've already spent it. Right, go on then. Moving on. So,
Yeah, so in this country, there's been a huge epidemic of knife crime that's basically exploded out of nothing. I'm 32. I was at school 16 years ago at high school. Knives were not a thing. They weren't even. It wasn't even a debate, really. It wasn't even something that was even in the back of your mind that very rarely happened. It just didn't happen. And I grew up in the Isle of Wight. Fair enough. If you grew up in inner city London 16 years ago, maybe that it was still something on your mind then. But the difference now is extraordinary. Where I don't know about you, but every time I see a group of kids, sort of 13, 14, 15, 16, I will just work on the assumption one of them will have a knife. Even in my village, I just work on that assumption because of how rife it is right across the country. So in schools, particularly in central London and inner cities, Birmingham, Manchester, Liverpool, Sheffield and so on, where there seems to have been more evidence of knife crime and deaths and so on within schools, there is apparently ways they're trying to tackle it. One, by having police officers in schools, by having more PCSOs, by having more, community outreach, knife drop-off points outside police stations where people can just drop knives in them. It's anonymous. There's no comeback on them, which is mental. But anyway, this is a story here from the Metropolitan Police. Pupils and teachers voice fears over staggering decision to remove specialist police officers from London schools. The Metropolitan Police has transferred just under 400 Safer Schools police officers into neighbourhood teams. Head teachers say they've not been consulted and are urging the government and the Metropolitan Police to reconsider. Pupils have done a video basically explaining the dangers of this and how this will lead to more knives at school. It will lead to a less safe environment. It will lead to a situation where teachers, one, can't do anything. They have no one they can call to help if there is evidence that someone has a knife. There's nothing there to support them. Young people won't want to go to school. And there's less ways to try and educate people who maybe have fallen into gang culture out of it. So it's just an absolutely ridiculous decision. So the story goes on to say that education leaders are urging the Metropolitan Police to reconsider a decision to transfer 371 officers into neighbourhood policing teams instead. Teachers warn that pupils will be at a greater risk of violence, and some students told Sky News they were worried more knives and more drugs would be brought into school. This initiative, Safer Schools, was brought into London schools in 2009, where they were there to de-escalate peer-on-peer conflict and prevent youth crimes in public. In a letter obtained by Sky News, a group of 15 head teachers from secondary schools in North East London have written to the Met to warn without the support of Safer Schools officers, vulnerable students may become prey to exploitation and in turn perpetrators of crime. It's a group of head teachers, including Sam Jones, the chair of Waltham Forest Secondary School, said that teachers are extremely concerned about the withdrawal and the fact they were not consulted in this decision is absolutely abhorrent.
It's funny, isn't it, how far we've come. We've come from, 15 years ago or 16 years ago, as you said, the idea of having a police officer at your school is like, are you having a laugh, mate? This is like 1984. What the hell is going on? To now, I can't believe they're taking police officers out of schools.
I remember when they put a CCTV camera up in the boys' locker room, not in the bit where you got changed, in the sort of where the lockers were in middle school. So that would have been 20 years ago. And that was like, they had a whole assembly about it with parents, because parents were like, what's going on? And it was because there'd been a few fights in there.
Right.
But it's just absolute madness. Like the difference in such a short space of time is extraordinary.
Yeah.
Like completely extraordinary. And, there's so many theories you can look at. A big one, which I've always called for and been an advocate for, is the violent video games that are all of a sudden now rife, so graphic, and the graphics are so sophisticated now that it's basically real life. I think that, I remember when I was in high school, it's when Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare came out, which became like the biggest. I never played it. That was FIFA only. Me and used to play FIFA all the time. That became like the biggest video game of all time. You had Grand Theft Auto, where you had all those kind of violent games, which now young people are playing consistently. They're watching violent content online. So much of that, I think, is responsible, along with a lot of disenfranchised people where they feel like a gang is part of a community, they feel like part of something, and they're growing up in neighbourhoods where, what's your start in life? A lot of these neighbourhoods in certain parts of London, where it's either joining a gang almost feels like you're joining something to be safe. That's a lot of them.
Well, they also, we've spoke to people on Bring the Fire who were previous, gang members and stuff, and they've spoke to us about how actually the gangs protect certain parts of the community as well. So they're almost seen in certain ways as almost like a militia to protect the community. And so actually then young people I want to be a protector of the community. It's like you're pushing drugs, dude.
Yeah, exactly. It's, they see themselves as doing the jobs the police should be doing.
Well, the thing is as well, like it's an interesting one because, you're taking away those police officers because obviously I guess they need people to police the internet to see if someone's saying hurty words or whatever. That's more important.
Absolutely.
But the other thing is, again, put my tinfoil hat on. There could be an ulterior motive to this, which is if you want things to get worse, if you want bad things to happen in these schools, that then you can use as an excuse to bring in an even more draconian clampdown on what's going on in schools in terms of lockdowns and these things. I mean, you never heard of lockdowns. There was one not far from us the other day where they locked the school down.
It's one in my village.
Yeah,
last week. Yeah.
It's crazy. Then to get people to agree to that, because it's okay. Well, we've got a police officer in the school. Okay, 20 years ago, I'd have thought that was bang out of order. But okay, knife crime's got worse, whatever. But then if you want to take things further and make it even more dystopian in the school, make it even more, terrifyingly, you want it done by algorithms and AI and all this sort of stuff that parents or who are of a slightly older generation would oppose. You need some bad stuff to happen. So by pulling away security, is that opening the door to that? I mean, we've spoke before about if you want to kill a president, not that I do, by the way, for anyone that's watching. If you want to kill a president, you don't actually have to kill them yourself. You can just, if you've got the ability to, remove their security, then you can just sit back and rub your hands together and wait for it to happen, because it will eventually, because that's unfortunately the way it goes. So these people have obviously got the ability to take the security out of the school. So is there, and I don't mean in terms of the officers themselves, of course, but is there, way up in the shadows, a slightly more ulterior motive, which is we'll pull away the security, allow some horrendous things to happen, we'll hit the headlines with it, 4 or 5 maybe in a period of 2 weeks or whatever, oh my God, stabbing in the school, teacher stabbed, blah, 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 that you can then go, oh mate, we need to bring these police officers back and some.
Well, order out of chaos. You create chaos. You get the public to demand what the hell. You got obviously, and children is a massively emotive subject.
Of course it is.
So the passion of parents and the love of parents to want their kids to be safe. That is something that unites people all around the world. And I think if you start to see young children getting involved in this, getting pulled into this, because you think about secondary school. At secondary school, you have kids all the way from 12 years old all the way up to potentially 18 years old. So, your 12-year-old gets caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. All of a sudden, the call for something to be done is massive. But just to finish, 16,500 offences in London. London alone involving knife crime last year, just under 20% up on the year before. So you think about that. If that's going up 20% a year, even if it's going up, let's say 10% a year, in not very long, that's insane. And I was talking to somebody about this the other day, that if you rewind 10 years where it didn't exist to now, what's it going to look like in another 10 years if nothing is done? That 16,000, if that goes up 10% every year, all of a sudden, that's into the 6 figures.
Yeah, but Sadiq Khan's making London better because he's painting rainbow crossings.
Celebrating Eid.
Rainbow road crossings, that's more important. Okay, so staying with the UK, but again, like I said at the top of the show, it's everywhere, this stuff. UK creating murder prediction tool to identify people most likely to kill. Is that Minority Report? The Tom Cruise film? It's funny how much Hollywood becomes reality, isn't it? The UK government is developing a murder prediction program which it hopes can use personal data of those known to the authorities to identify the people most likely to become killers. Researchers are alleged to be using algorithms, so that'll be AI then, to analyse the information of thousands of people, including victims of crime, as they try to identify those at greatest risk of committing serious violent offences. The scheme was originally called the Homicide Prediction Project. Now, that sounds very dystopian, so they've rebadged it. You fool.
I'm not driving a mini metro.
I'm not driving a mini metro, no, absolutely. No, so now it's called Sharing Data to Improve Risk Assessment. That sounds like management talk, David. I know you hate that. The Ministry of Justice hopes the project will help boost public safety, but campaigners have called it chilling and dystopian. That's because it is. Like I said, again, Hollywood becomes reality. It's another example of Starmer injecting AI into the veins of the United Kingdom. And you also think, if it can be identified by algorithms and by AI, well, who's setting those algorithms?
Yeah.
And what are the chances that a conspiracy theorist, someone that said stuff online, it's dangerous, isn't it? Far-right hate crime. Far right hate crime. What did he say? He said he doesn't think that women have got penises. What? Right. Well, that's a killer in the making, mate.
That's dark.
All day long. Whack that in the algorithm. And so you can see how it will be used against people. They'll go, okay, so has he got a homestead? Yeah, he's got a homestead. Has he got a gun? Well, yeah, he's a homestead. He might have a gun to go hunting for food and whatever. Has he got a license? Yeah, it doesn't matter. Everyone can get a license these days. He's got a gun. He's got a homestead, meaning he's probably anti-establishment. Put down killer. Yeah, put down killer. Type down killer.
So yeah, do you homeschool your kids?
Ooh, you don't want them in the establishment. You don't want them in the system. That's because you don't want the system to be able to see what's going on with them. So you don't want them to be safeguarded. Put down killer. Just type down killer.
Yeah. Do you grow your own food? Prep, maybe? Keep your own animals?
Serial killer, mate.
Eat meat?
Well, if you don't eat cereal, then that maybe affects Nestle and other cereal manufacturers. Put down serial killer. Just type down serial killer. Yep.
Well, have you seen the latest Weetabix advert about, the world's on the knife edge and about to go to war because the leaders haven't had their Weetabix? That's their new campaign. It's hilarious. All the problems in the world. Have you Weetabix, guys?
I can guarantee they're not eating Weetabix.
No, I guarantee they're not.
No. Adrenochrome for breakfast.
Oh, yeah. But what's really, really interesting with this one is the fact that they've been trying for so long to basically isolate those that are against the system.
Yeah.
And they can literally do it with the swish of an algorithm in such a simple way that they can identify everybody. They've been harvesting all this data for so many years through the social media platforms, and even more so now with Twitter. That's why he's got it. It's not because of any other reason.
I thought he was a saviour. I thought he was a freedom-loving saviour.
Well, people have relaxed, haven't they? They're more comfortable. If Zuckerberg was asking you the questions 5 years ago, that like the biometric one, for example, that they do for, I think you need to do to get the profit sharing or advertising money or something on Twitter. If Zuckerberg was asking you to do that a few years ago, there'd have been uproar. Now, because Musk's in charge, as Gaz says, the saviour's in charge. Yeah, I'll give you my information. That's fine. I trust you, man.
Have my shirt. There you go. Have that.
Whereas they've been harvesting all that data, they're now going to use it to target certain groups, certain individuals. And one thing that I think is really interesting is that if you look at the last few years in this country anyway, the big events that have really hit the headlines, that have made the news in terms of terror attacks, in terms of things that have caused loss of life, whether it be Southport, whether it be Manchester Arena, they were all known to the police.
Always.
And I wonder if what they're going to come out with here is, look, these people were known, however, because of human error, because it was a human being that maybe overlooked that maybe looked at this person's file and didn't highlight the things that should have been highlighted. And as a result, they were allowed to carry out the attacks because they were walking the streets, and it was all human beings that made that mistake.
And children died.
And we can't let that happen again. Well, AI is not going to have empathy. AI is not going to have the ability to think critically and maybe make a decision based on something else. It's going to go, well, yeah.
Bosh.
And there you go. Again, like Gaz said with the first story, where you're going to have that sort of right-leaning audience that are resistant going, I don't like the idea of AI everywhere. Well, if it saves what happened in Southport from happening again, then I'm reluctant, but I get it. Let's see what happens. And there you go. Their foot's in the door and away they go.
Exactly. I compare it all the time to the governments the world over, all these public bodies the world over. They're like protection rackets.
Yeah.
In the sense that they want to come in and take over the vibe like a protection racket does. I'll handle the security for your business. You just give me loads of money and I'll protect your business. And the business goes, well, I don't need protecting, mate.
Oh, you do.
I'm absolutely fine. And then suddenly a week later, all the windows got smashed in, the door got smashed in, and the safe got stolen. It got smashed up. Oh, mate, I think you need security now, don't you? Yeah, I do. Yeah, I'll have you do it. Yeah.
Blackmail.
Pretty sure they did it.
Blackmail.
Pretty sure they did it. That's the point.
Yeah, exactly. Create the devastator. Order out chaos. It's the same. You could just apply that to every single story you talk about. You want an outcome. It doesn't seem feasible. It doesn't seem that people will support it. All of a sudden, you create an environment where it actually then becomes something the public demand. Oh, what a shame. Here you go. Here's the solution.
Exactly.
Ready all along.
Yeah.
So predictable. So predictable. You could apply that argument to so many things that we've seen in recent years. It's so predictable because people don't seem to see it. So if the same method works, they're just going to keep rinsing and repeating, which is all they're doing. Exactly. That's why, on this show, we try and not just talk about what's happening, but talk about what may be to come. Because then when that event inevitably then happens, you can go, well, I've heard that before. This isn't organic because it was pointed out to me 6 months ago that this was going to be used to justify that.
Yeah. Well, we spoke about it on this very show just a couple of 3 months ago, maybe, saying that a mass unfiltered immigration would be used as an excuse to get those conservative-leaning people to agree to digital ID.
100%.
And here we go.
Here we are.
That's obvious.
Well, kind of jumped in there, which is fine. But my segue was, speaking of stories that we've covered in the past and predicted what was going to happen.
You could have still said that.
I did anyway. You know, I'm trying to see how many Partridge and Office quotes we can get in today's episode as well.
I've got a few so far.
Right, assisted dying. So this is a story that we covered a few months ago when the debate went through and it was passed. And we spoke about the fact that this was step one. Step one on the road to something which is a lot more sinister than protecting people and giving people a dignified end on their own terms who maybe are terminally ill, in lots of pain, losing their cognitive abilities, whatever that may be. I think most people could sit here now and say, if you were suffering with something like, an extreme form of dementia where you didn't know who you were, you couldn't move, you were bedridden, would you want to be put out of your misery? And I think a lot of people would say, I think those people should have the choice and decision to do that if they want. That's not what this is about. That is the foot in the door, again, as we've covered with all these stories today, based on emotional manipulation. Something that gets you emotively thinking, I can see the point here, I can see why that's needed. Step one. Well, not even got step one through yet because this isn't even law yet, and they're already changing the wording and they're already changing the whole point of the whole way this thing is structured, which we spoke about, didn't we? That the checks and balances that they were going to have that make it absolutely impossible for anyone who is not 100% willing and wanting to do this and 100% eligible for it from, being taken advantage of, manipulated, whatever, whether that's by the state, whether that's by, a loved one for financial gain, whatever it might be, all those checks and balances, we said they were going to bit by bit be stripped back. And one of the key things in the initial bill that was passed was that it was going to require a high court judge to approve every single one, right? Which campaigners in favour of this bill said would take too long and it would be slow. But if it gets it right, I couldn't give a crap about that, to be honest. If it gets it right and it stops people being taken advantage of, I don't care if it's slow. You'd rather it was slow than too fast and people fall through the net. Anyway, amendments have been made to this bill which will lead to it being redebated to scrap that high court judge involvement and replace them with a voluntary assisted dying commissioner. Well, that's as vague a statement as you can have. What does that mean? Is that somebody who's elected? Is that somebody who is just appointed by who? What is their powers? What is the comeback on them if poor decisions are made? And obviously, you might argue watching this that they're the sort of things that will be flushed out during the debate, and you may well be right. But the point of raising this is that already, matter of weeks, what was it, Gaz? 8 weeks, 10 weeks ago, this bill went through. After the initial discussion, which was quite tight, it wasn't, unanimous, was it? And it's not even in law yet. They are now removing the biggest kind of check and balance already.
Yeah, they move the goalposts. Is what
Completely.
they do. They get the foot in the door, and once they've got the foot in the door, then they start to, invite their mates round. The other part of it that I think is important is the fact, as Jay said, that it's just the stepping stone. So it's terminally ill people. If you're terminally ill, you're dying anyway, you're dying in agony, then you should be allowed to go out on your own terms. Okay, I get that completely, and there's a lot of sympathy for that.
Yep.
But that's not how it ends. It will then go to people that aren't terminally ill, right? And then it then goes to people that aren't even ill physically,
mental
not
health,
dying.
yeah.
It becomes a mental health thing, right? Now, people watching might go, "Oh, come on, mate! Mate." There's examples of that, and the examples of that are every other nation that's ever passed an assisted dying bill. So in Canada, it started off with no, it's just terminally ill. Now they're offering it to people with mental health problems and doing it and killing them. In the Netherlands, it was the same thing. It started off with they're terminally ill. Now there's multiple cases of people in the Netherlands being killed, euthanized, because they're sad, because they're unhappy. Because the world's a mess. Of course you're unhappy. There's another element to it which I think is quite dystopian, which is the fact that I was reading in terms of this bill that actually once there's been a ruling, so the state essentially rules and says, yeah, okay, Ethel can die, do it, off you go, see you in 10 minutes. The family aren't allowed to appeal that decision. They're not allowed to then go, well, hang on a minute, and go back and have a back and forth. Now, what I saw, which we speak about it all the time, everything's inverted.
Yeah.
Right? Everything is inverted. So, we spoke about it yesterday, where you've got Donald Trump, who's spending a record $1 trillion on a defense budget. It's not a defense, it's an offense budget, because it's not to defend America, it's to go and bomb countries in the Middle East. And everything is inverted. Same with net zero. We're destroying everything, but we have to save everything. Well, making sense. Karen Ledbetter, who's the woman who's basically pushing this thing, she came out just a few days ago in the House of Commons and said that those that tried to convince their family member not to end their life were guilty of coercion.
So you got a bloke stood at the top of Chelsea Bridge wanting to jump off, and you're like, mate,
don't talk him out of it.
Don't talk him out of it. That's coercion.
Him out of it. Give him a shove, if anything. Do you know what I mean? But that's because everything, like I say, everything's inverted. Up is down, left is right, and that's how they do it. So she's there going, it's coercion. It was the same when they were trying to push the inheritance tax on the farmers, where these people were coming out and just saying it's immoral. I'm thinking, all right, where are they going with this? They're going to say it's immoral for the state to steal people's money. Oh, no, they're not going that way. No. They said it's immoral for a family member to pass down wealth to their offspring.
Yep.
Well, that's because everything is inverted, and this is another one. If it's allowed to go through, I mean, Dad spoke about it for years, about the Dr. Richard Day, the demise pill, the fact that they want to get to a point where basically people get to a certain age. You've had a good life, mate. High five. You can't high five. It'll hurt your shoulder. Yeah, off you go. You're dead.
Yep.
Because there's too many people on the planet, because climate and change and weather and cow farts.
Yeah.
Etc.
It's very, very clear. And it sounds sinister to even talk about taking somebody's life. But as we said, there's a sympathetic angle that they are pushing people towards, in terms of, this is the poster of this. It's people who are terminally ill. It's people, and most people can look and go, I can sympathise with somebody in that position. And if I was in that position, I'd probably think about it myself. Most people can probably put themselves in that position. Yeah. It then sounds crazy conspiracy theory and far-fetched to then jump to what we're talking about here with the demise pill and a certain age. I can't remember if there was actually an age number on it. Probably just before you get your pension, I'd have thought.
Yeah, which will be about 100.
Where they, basically when you stop becoming useful to them, when you stop being able to pay into it, you become a useless eater. Funny that those lot seem to live a while. The Rothschilds, Kissinger, Bush Senior, they all seem to live to a good old age.
All of them, the Queen.
Useless eaters.
Old goat legs, she lived to a ripe old age as well.
It sounds far-fetched, but it's so easy to see the timeline of events that's going to lead you there. And Dad's book, Everything You Need to Know But Have Never Been Told, which came out in I think 2016, he goes extensively into that Richard Day speech in 1969, I think.
Was it?
In
69,
1969 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where he talked about how the world was going to change, and the demise pill was a massive one that was talked about, and how they were going to euthanize the elderly for a number of different reasons. Like you say, you have a nice meal with your family, you've had a good life, take the pill, off you go. And you can see in different countries around the world, you mentioned a few of them there, Switzerland obviously is the top of the list, has been for a long time, where you see that roadmap to that outcome being put out right in front of your eyes. If you know where to look, because you work on the assumption your governments care about you, you can understand why, maybe they're just doing it to help people that are vulnerable and people that are poorly and people that, want a dignified ending. But your governments don't care about you, so why would they be doing something that was a benefit to you when they screw you for the rest of it? They screw you your whole life and do something for your benefit at the end. I mean, come on, that's the far-fetched thing, really, isn't it?
I think if you work on the assumption that the government cares about you, then
I'll just stay in bed.
I've got an inflatable dartboard for sale if you want to buy it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, so that's us.
It is.
Now I want to talk quickly about the Iconic Live.
Yes, next Friday, Good Friday, the 18th in Sutton Coldfield, just outside Birmingham. Myself, Gareth, Richard, David and Christian are all going to be on stage. You're hosting this one.
Yeah, put loads of thought into it.
An evening of, a bit of inspiration, some interesting information and a few laughs along the way, because the world is pretty mental, and I think you can stew in the darkness of it, or you can just to an extent, laugh at the madness of lots of it, and really give it no power. When you laugh at something, you give it no power. When you give it all your energy, it can consume you, which is, I understand, and that's a lot of people's daily lives these days. So we try and bring a bit of inspiration, try and have a few laughs. We don't take ourselves too seriously.
No, that's a big mistake. Actually, to connect madness with Birmingham.
The band?
No, this is an anecdotal story. It's a true story of my experience. A friend of mine I spoke to recently I haven't actually found out how it went, but he had a disciplinary at work, works for the council, had a disciplinary. And I went, why are you up for a disciplinary? Because he's like a proper stand-up, you're not the kind of person that you'd ever have a disciplinary. And he said they were having a meeting and someone turned up late and said, sorry everyone, I got stuck in Birmingham. And he said, stuck in Birmingham? Geez, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy.
And he got a disciplinary?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And he went back to him and said, what? And he said, we believe that there were connotations of perhaps racism and Islamophobia.
Jesus.
So, no, I just think Birmingham's a docile.
Which it is.
So that's why we're in Sutton Coldfield.
Yeah, it's a nice part of it.
Not
yeah.
Birmingham. But yeah, the madness of life. There you go. But anyway, where can people get tickets for that, Jay, if they want to come
We'll put the link in the description. So it's shop.iconic.com. Put the link in the description. As I said, I think it's 7 o'clock start. 7 o'clock start. Just finish at 10. Good Friday. Have a nice time. The venue's lovely. Really nice theatre. There's bar and all of that. That's usually a good selling point. It's for you. Yeah. For you, if there's a bar, he's there immediately.
Friday night, innit?
Got to drive. Sadly.
Hope to see you there. Yeah, and you're back to. Oh no, we're back tomorrow again.
We're back tomorrow. We swapped this week. Me and Rich. So I've got 3 days in a row of me. One with you, another one with you, and one with Rich on Friday. That was today's episode, brought to you by Iconic Coffee. Head over to shop.iconic.com where you get tickets and you can get coffee. Use the code trending for 10% off, and we will be back with you 10 a.m. tomorrow morning.
Take it easy.